And this morning, what I will do is I will take you through briefly all the topics there that our church is going through in term 3. Hopefully, it'll give you some idea, introduction, what that series is about. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is the Bible. There are questions on the Bible, whether it is trustworthy, whether we can actually stick our lives on it. It is an ancient document. How can you still trust an ancient document? And people are saying, well, look, the Bible has a lot of really strange language. It could be nonsense, but it's very strange the way it is written. And a lot of people think the Bible is one book, but the Bible is actually a collection of many books of different genre, written by different authors across different generations. For example, if you look at Genesis chapter 4, it was in the context of Noah's Ark. It talked about the flood. And when people look at, the floodgates of the heavens were opened immediately, people think, well, this language is nonsense. There's no gate in the heaven to start with. There's nothing there. This must be a bedtime story, a fairy tale to kids. There's no historical context in it. But when you look at the Bible, it was written by the ancient people. They don't actually have the science we have these days. They don't actually know water evaporate, condense, and then precipitate, and hence you get the rain. They don't actually look at it this way. What they know is, well, while they are sitting in their chair looking at the sky when there is a massive amount of rain and water coming down, in their head they think, well, somewhere in the sky it got to store the water. So in their head, they think, well, for that amount of water coming down, there must be an attic. So in their head, the sky is like an attic. So when the gate, which is the door, open, instead of a ladder coming down for us to get access to the attic, water flushing through. So that's what they are talking about. They refer to the sky like an attic storing water. So what we can tell is whether there is an actual floodgate in the sky. We cannot be sure, probably not. But what we can be sure is it was an enormous amount of water coming from the sky, and it was enough to drown the world. That's what they are trying to tell you. They're using a language that they can understand. They can express the phenomenon that they've seen in their lifetime. And then someone will comment, well, look, the Bible is full of factual inaccuracy there. One passage says the same story, the passage says something else. This cannot be true if there's factual inaccuracy. Look at the resurrection, the account of resurrection across 2 books in the Bible. In the book of John, it said the first day of the week, it was still dark. You've got Mary went to the tomb. And then in Mark, the Gospel of Mark, it said after sunrise on the first day, there are 2 Marys actually went to the tomb. And people will be saying, well, here comes, there's a discrepancy there. Now, when people put the Bible together, we are talking about the witnesses. They wrote down what they have seen, they have heard in their lifetime. So everyone give you a puzzle of the picture, a different puzzle to enrich the story so you can see better. So obviously, both are saying, it is the first day of the week, which is Sunday. There are 2 Marys. Why one passage said it's dark, the other one say after sunrise. I don't let you know. Maybe Mary was wearing sunglasses. Who knows? You just won't ever know. But what you can see is the event actually happened in the morning. So in the Bible, even there's some factual inaccuracy there, but you can see they all line up in the big picture. It was in the morning on the 3rd day Jesus was resurrected. Now, if I ask you a question after the church service, can you tell me the church service this morning? Everyone will come up with a different versions. Someone may say we sing 3 songs before the sermon. Someone say we sing 2 songs before the announcement. Someone may even say, maybe Wayne was leading the service instead of Wade because their names are close in terms of pronunciation. It's actually really correct. Everyone is saying, everyone is in the same service, witnessing the same experience. It's just when you come down to write down the account, there got to be some discrepancy there. And it is that discrepancy that makes the fact true. Now, if in a court, you've got 2 witnesses, they're saying exactly identical story. What does it mean? It was coordinated. They have talked to each other before they come to the court. So discrepancy is actually good. That tells you the story in the Bible is true. And I think that's very important for us to understand. In fact, in 2 Timothy, it talks about how the scripture, the Bible, was put together. It was God-breathed. God didn't hold our hands, hold the author's hand to write the Bible, but God inspired people to write the Bible. When they write the Bible, it got to reflect their culture, the language, the level of science they have got in those times. And that's real. Second thing I want to talk about is an exclusive faith. Now, a lot of people, it's not about not liking Christians or not liking Jesus or not. It's not quite that. It's about what they call exclusive faith, what Jesus has said. This is one example from John chapter 14. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him because you have seen him. So obviously, Jesus is claiming he is the only way to God, and you have seen God because you have seen him. He also claims himself as God. Now, people don't like this idea because what we are saying is Jesus is the only way to God, are we? Yes, we are. That's exactly what we are telling you. Jesus is the only way to God. And people will say, well, hang on. That's not inclusive enough. That's arrogant. That's discriminatory. That's ridiculous. You're excluding every other faith. Now, the issue here is we are living in a society that is pluralistic. So there are multiple treatments to one disease. There are multiple pathways to university. There got to be multiple pathways to the gods or to God. It cannot be just one pathway. It has to be inclusive enough to include everyone. But mind you, our Christian faith, we are inclusive at the practical level, but very exclusive at the theological level. Jesus is simply telling the truth. The world that we are living in, we always pursue the truth. What is science seeking? The truth. What is a journalist seeking? The truth. What is Royal Commission seeking? The truth. We're all looking for the truth. We want the truth more than ever. When you claim something is true, on the other side, it cannot be true. It's natural. There's only one Dyson. There's only one fish and pickle. There's only one apple. As simple as that. Anyone want to make a brand and get the public confused, you will be in the court anyway. Because you have the exclusive right. What is true is true. And you just have to say it. It's not about being exclusive, being discriminatory, or being arrogant. Christian faith is exclusive in the sense that it claims Jesus is the only God. In fact, when you look through the Bible, in the context of talking about prayer, Jesus said, seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. Everyone who asks receives. Everyone who seeks finds. To the one who knocks, the door will be opened. You cannot be more inclusive than that, can you? Anyone who comes to Jesus, whether you have faith or not, you can pray to him. He will answer your prayer. Think about this. If someone knocks on your door, who will you open the door? You have a list of people you're not going to open. You have a list of people you open the door as well. You're not going to open the door to everyone, trust me. But what Jesus is saying is, when you come to Jesus, he will open the door, whether you're a man or a woman, strong or weak, rich or poor, homeless, or you have a place to live. It doesn't matter. Well, that's inclusive enough, I think. How more inclusive than you want? Next one I want to talk about is homosexuality. Now, it's a really hot topic at the moment, but has been for a while, actually. You know, the idea of homosexuality has changed a lot. We are living in an era of gender confusion. Before, homosexuality was a topic of moral discussion. Now it has changed to a topic of human rights discussion. So it's not about moral standard, right or wrong. It's about a personal choice. It's an individual choice you got to respect. Now that's a paradigm shift, how we think of homosexuality. If you look at the terminology, you've got the LGBT, now you've got LGBTQIA+. Now, let me tell you, you don't need a prophecy to tell you this. You will have more symbol and letter added later in the years to come, because people are still exploring that idea of sexuality. There'll be more new terms, more symbols, and more letters adding behind. And especially when people put up the sign and say love matters. Love is love. If you are on the other side of the coin will be hate. As long as you are on the opposition side, all of a sudden you fall into that hate tribe. People will not like you because you are on the side that doesn't show love. At least that's how they think. But there is a problem here. If anyone who doesn't agree with your moral compass, if anyone who doesn't agree with your choice of life, and they hate you, you'll be very lucky to find someone in your life who loves you. Because you love someone, but you will never agree everything with the person said. That's normality of life. If someone simply don't agree with you, and then you said they're hating you or they're phobia of any kind, you will not be able to find anyone who loves you. That's not what relationship is about. Relationship is about accommodating one another, learning from one another. And Jesus gives us a very good answer. People who hate you doesn't mean they hate you, because he hated Jesus first. If you belong to the world, it will love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, and that's why the world hates you. Jesus gives you the answer. It was nothing to do with you. People doesn't like Christianity. They just don't like the teaching because it goes against their choices. It goes against their orientation. And you know what? The idea, the reality of homosexuality is very real. It's not just a head-type discussion, because eventually there will be a point in your life you will encounter someone close to you. Could be one of your best friends, could be your own family, could be your children, your grandchildren. They will be in the space of homosexuality. There will be a time one of your best friends invites you to a wedding that is homosexual wedding, and you have to make a choice whether to go or not. What is a blessing to them? How do you respond will show the way you love them. You welcome them, but you're not affirming what they are doing. It is very practical. Not only just respond to a head-type question, but you have to be a part of it to respond and work together. You know, when God created man and woman, they're anatomically, physically compatible with each other, and there is a purpose of that. It's a relationship that God wants us to be in. You might be thinking, it's a relationship. It's also the purpose of perpetuating the human species to populate the world. That's what God is saying. But mind you, when you look at homosexual relationship, when you look at a couple, you always find one of them display a female or male behavior or orientation. So at the end of the day, whether it's same-sex attraction or heterosexual attraction, will be your judgment to look at. God created human beings. There is an opposite force attract to one another. You always see the female side and the male side, even if it is a homosexual relationship. And I think that is interesting to know. When Jesus told his disciples, whatever wants to be my disciple, you must deny themselves, take up their own cross and follow me. What Jesus is saying is, everyone has their own cross. For someone, it might be pride. Some people might be money. Some people might be sexuality. To follow Jesus, there's got to be something we have to drop. Everyone has a different burden in their life. Jesus is asking, can we drop whatever things we're engaging in, but to follow Jesus. And I think that is a very big challenge to many of us. In fact, at the end of the series, in homosexuality, it talks about you can come to the church as you are, but do not stay as you are. I think it's right to the heart of the matter. When we come to Jesus, we've got to drop what we're engaging in and bear our own cross to follow him. And I think that's beautiful. It's not just about sexuality. It's about all things. This could be a phone that we're holding in our hand, or it could be anything. The next one I want to talk about is sufferings. Now, this one is very, very, very difficult to preach on. When I was preparing this part of the sermon, I found it so difficult to work out an answer from the Christian perspective. The main issue we have here is we cannot accept one very important thing. How come God allows suffering? How come there are so much suffering in the world? How come someone lives an easy life, but I have to live a very tough life? How come my surname cannot be Gate or Musk? It's so much better if there are those kind of surname. Why God can be a bystander of tragedy? Now, in the case of a car accident, even the first aider will be expected to do their due diligence to help. How come when a suffering happens to someone, God seems to be silent? Well, these are the questions we have to wrestle with, and it's very, very, very difficult to find a satisfactory answer. Many Christians will find it difficult to find answers to their own sufferings. But let alone, how can you answer questions to those people who are not Christians, but they're also suffering? So I had a bit of deep thinking about that, and I came up with two things that we are doing at the moment. So when people say, why God allows suffering, we jump straight in to defend God, as if God needs our defense, as if God has a part to play in our suffering, as if God is the one we have to blame. Second part is, when we look at sufferings, I wonder, the vast majority of our sufferings must have a linkage to human sins. It could be directly, indirectly. It could be imminently or remotely. What might be an example of a direct consequence of our sins? Well, think about mass shooting. Indirect consequence, think about global warming. Remotely, what about a lot of congenital health conditions? You probably can make your way and find and trace the origin to do with pollution and that enter to the food chain, nanoplastics, for example. There's so much you can trace it back. And at the end, I ask myself this question: is there any suffering on the earth that you can be absolutely, fully cut ties with human sins? Is there any sufferings in the world that you can be 100% sure there's no linkage to human behavior and judgment? I couldn't find one. I find it's very difficult to find one suffering in the world that cannot be linked to human behaviors, misjudgment, or sins. In the Bible, Genesis chapter 3, or one step ahead, chapter 1, God created heavens and earth, and it was good. When God talks about the world was good, it doesn't just mean aesthetically it looks good, like the tree looks good, the sky looks good, the ocean looks beautiful. It talks about functionally in harmony. Because the Hebrews, they were a very practical group of people. They don't do a lot of abstract type words. When they say it's good, it means functionally. Water comes down, the tree grows, and crops grow, and humans eat, and they go back to the ground. That's all they said. Functionally, it works really, really well. Now think about the world that we are living in. Natural disaster. That is due to prolonged abuse of the planet by human beings. Road accident could be a misjudgment. It doesn't have to be speeding. It could be just a misjudgment, a mistake, and it costs life. Well, we can't put our misjudgment on God. We made a mistake. Cancer. The early age onset of cancer the age is actually dropping quickly. If you look at the latest report from WHO, you start to realize they're looking at the cancer rate, which population is getting more cancer. The age is getting younger and younger. You think about cancer, for example, I think the test kit is for the age after 55 is free. They're talking about dropping it to 45 because they see more people before the age of 45 has bowel cancer. And you wonder why? What happened? Perhaps what we have done to the environment make its way to the food chain. But what we are eating maybe has an impact on our life. The question we are battling is why God is a bystander. Maybe we started at the wrong place. Maybe it wasn't God who was causing all this suffering. In fact, God has given us something very important. It's called freedom. Whenever there is freedom, there will be suffering. Whenever there is a freedom given to us, there will be suffering. In the book of Genesis, chapter 3, Adam and Eve, they had done something wrong against God. God has given them the freedom to eat the fruit of any tree they want, except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And they chose to eat it. And then when God in the garden, he asked, "What have you done, Adam?" Adam said, "Well, the woman you gave me, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it." So he has done something wrong. He blamed God for what happened, for the situation that he is in. He got expelled to the garden, and then it's a lifetime suffering from there. You know, we are very quick to blame God for the suffering. But God has given us the freedom to choose. Especially if we don't choose it wisely, suffering has to be part of your freedom package. We all pursue freedom everywhere, but suffering got to be part of the package, unfortunately. You know, your freedom impact my freedom impact your freedom. Today, if you exercise your freedom without boundary, later in your life, your body will impose boundary on you. For example, if you vape through your teenage years all the way to adulthood, by the time you get old, you might have a very good chance your lung will impose boundary on your physical capacity. There will be things that you cannot do. Maybe emphysema, who knows? The day when you exercise your boundary, you exercise your freedom without boundary, your body will impose boundary on you when you get old. The thing is, you choose, God breathed the breath of life into our lung. You choose to breathe in something else, you can't blame God, isn't it? As simple as that. That's why freedom also comes with the package. There got to be suffering, prosperity, joy, excitement, disappointment. You can't just want the good, but not taking the bad. It has to happen. That's life. So you can't say it's not even God making something worse in your life. It's our decision, our freedom. So how God can take away sufferings then? Well, the main issue here is sin. Sin is the root of the problem, not suffering. The only way you can take away suffering is to take away freedom. If there's no freedom, then there will not be suffering because everyone is doing the right thing. So what will that be then? It is in prison. Will you call the world good then? You need to ask the question. Without freedom, will you call the world good? You won't. So you have to have the freedom, and hence, suffering has to be part of the package because no one always makes the right choice. People misjudge, misbehave, even out of the good intention, you can make the wrong choice and impact people and bring sufferings to people's life. It's normality. It's not about God's presence or not. It's about ultimately we are the only one accountable. Because when God built the world, it was good. But it was no good now. Who has been assigned to manage the world is human beings. God gave the role to Adam and Eve and all human beings to manage the world. It made its way back on us if we are not doing it properly. Next one I want to talk about is the church. Now, the question around the church these days for our era is the church still relevant to people's life? it come a long way. In the past, church is, in Western culture in particular, is essential. These days, church will need to prove their worthiness in the world. In the past, church teaching built the foundation of moral standards. These days, you have to defend and prove the influence to the people is good, the church teaching. You can see how the way the education system is forming. It's taking a lot of Christian values. No faith teaching. Faith-based teaching is toxic, it's no good. These are the things we are facing as a church. But when you look at the Bible, Jesus said this: everyone who hears these words of mine and put them in practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. When the rain comes, the streams rose, the winds blew, beat against that house, it did not fall because it has its foundation on the rock. What Jesus is saying is, if the church is built on Jesus, not human agenda, it will last, it will run, it will weather the storms coming ahead of us in decades. No need to be fear. It is important for us to remind the purpose of the church. A church is a community of people who love the world. We're not into the world. A church is a community of people who serve the world, but not serving the value of the world. A church is a community of people who has a true passions for the lost, but not lost in the world. And I think that's very important. When Jesus ran his ministry, he was an itinerant teacher. What it means is he went around from town to town to preach, to heal. There will be times he withdraw. There will be times people ask him to do things he declined. There will be times when people ask him to do things he would do it straight away. There are times that he gives instructions. But the bottom line is, it was very fluent, his ministry. He never stayed at one spot. As a church, we all talk about the church building. The church building is cemented to the concrete slab, but hopefully it will not move when the wind comes, when the storm comes. Shouldn't be. But the church community is actually mobile. We move around, we adapt to the change. You know, in the series, when they talk about our church doesn't change, when they talk about our church doesn't adapt to accommodate the laws, if a church only sing one type of songs, if the church only run one type of life groups, if the church only do one type of service, there is real problem there. Because we are not adapting to the changing environment. We are doing the same thing all the time. You know, when the Bible talk about God constantly working, it never said God only do one thing all the time. In fact, our God is a changing God. He changed all the time to get the lost into his family so they might share that joy of being part of the family. The most famous Bible verse is always this one, John chapter 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his one and only Son. Whoever believes in him shall not perish and have eternal life. And that's the primary purpose of the church. The whole Towards Belief series is to equip us with the foundation we need to open the difficult conversations. You will have people who challenge you, hopefully respectfully, but it doesn't happen all the time. There are people who shut their mind straight away when you talk about Christianity because they don't know what is the heart of the matter. And you carry that responsibility and role to explain further, dig into the issues of different subjects. The 10 topics that was covered here in the series is only a handful of topics that you are facing. It hasn't actually covered abortion. It hasn't actually covered voluntary assisted dying. Nuclear power, if you want to talk about it, Peter Dutton loves it at the moment. There are plenty of things as Christians you need to respond from the Christian perspective, from the Bible perspective. And there is a long list there. You can spend a lifetime studying it. Plenty. But this series, hopefully, those 10 topics, those 6 topics in particular, as a church you walk through, will give you some answers, will equip you with some tools that you can respond to those questions, so you can have a more fruitful, respectful, and constructive conversation.